Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah. How are you, dear students? Now let's just go back to what we took in our last lesson. We had a very interesting topic, which was about the reading lesson about Sheikh Salman al-Rajhi. So we're just going to revise what we took in our lesson. We had the reading on pages number 26 and 27. Now, look, going back to page number 27, we have here the comprehension questions that I asked you to answer. Now we're going to see what are the answers that we have here. The first question was, what were Salman al-Rajhi's life prospects in relation to his early life? So you had time to search for the answers. We have the answers going to be, he did not seem to have much hope of becoming a billionaire. The second question, what type of companies has he been involved in? So if you searched correctly, we have here the answer, banking, agricultural development, organic farming, real estate, investment, health, education, and more. So you can see that he had a lot of projects in different fields. Now we have in the third question, which business was the most difficult to establish and why? So there was a business which was not hurdle-free. So which was it? It was the banking, Islamic banking, in the UK. Because, why was it difficult? Because the British officials were not aware of the principles and requirements of Islamic banking. Question number 4. What is notable about Salman al-Rajhi in comparison to other wealthy businessmen? So there is something that makes him different. We can see that Sheikh Salman bin al-Rajhi worked and contributed to education. He contributed also in health and charities worldwide through SAAR, which is the largest foundation of its kind in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Question number 5. Why did al-Rajhi decide to donate most of his fortune to charity during his lifetime? This is an interesting thing that we learned about Sheikh Salman al-Rajhi. We can see that the answer is, having been poor early in life, he was not afraid to donate and distribute his wealth so he could gain peace of mind and inner happiness. We have the question number 6. Why was al-Rajhi awarded the King Faisal International Prize for Service to Islam? So the reason, as we mentioned when we took the lesson, he was awarded the prize in recognition of his outstanding service to Islam, his role in the establishment of the world's largest Islamic bank, and his ongoing contribution to charities. After that, if you recall, I asked you to order the events or the most important achievements of Sheikh Salman al-Rajhi. So we have here, after reading, your assignment was to organize al-Rajhi's most important achievements according to the timeline. Now we're going to just read them together. I want you to check and see how many of what I have here matches with your answers. So we're going to just see what we have here. Yes, now moving from the very start, we have the first one. He helped pilgrims and migrant workers. This is the first thing that we mentioned about him. The second one, established a Rajhi Bank. We mentioned that he became chairman of the National Agricultural Development Company, was the founder of the Al-Wataniya agricultural projects. He owned real estate and other investments, established the Salman al-Rajhi University. Established by the Salman al-Rajhi, there was a charitable foundation, the SAAR, and donated most of his 7.7 billion fortune to charity. So how many of your answers match with my answers here? Now you can see that I have the answers written, or the order written as we have read in the passage in the book. So have you had the same timeline? Maybe you'd added more. So if you have at least maybe 4 or 5 in the same order, you're good. Now we're going to see what we have left. After that, we have here. Okay, so let's just read the sentence together. We have here, Salman al-Rajhi had entered many fields, such as banking, agricultural development, organic farming, real estate, investment, health, education, and more. Now we read it before. just to realize that he had lots of projects and he entered different fields. Okay, so he did a lot for lots of people. Now, these actually are many achievements. We are going to just think about it. What about you? Now, when I think about Sheikh Sulaiman al-Rajhi and the things that he has accomplished and the achievements he has done to other people and for himself as well, it makes me think about myself and what I have done. So just put this in mind and think with me. Now we have here this part, which is going to be the speaking in your book. We have here, think about how you can be successful in your life without depending on others. So there are things that you can accomplish in your life. You can succeed without depending on other people, even if they are close around you. So we have our objectives in the speaking lesson. We have here to relate examples of success and achievements to personal ones. We have number 2, maximize opportunities for language practice. So as I mentioned before, this is going to be the speaking lesson followed after the reading. Now you are going to just exchange some information and exchange some opinions. You are going to speak with your colleagues or your classmates. So you have here the table in the book. You can see that there are 4 columns or 4 parts. The first one, you're going to ask yourself and just note it. What am I good at? How can I use my strengths to develop? So each one of us has different strengths and we have different abilities to do things. So how can I use these strengths to develop myself? We have the third part, which areas or skills I can develop. And the last part, how long it will take to reach my goal. So I'm going to think about the different skills that I have and how can I make them stronger. Why? To achieve my goals. Now you can just write your notes here in this table. Use your notes to talk in groups or in class, compare ideas. So there must be different opinions and you can just exchange your opinions with your class, in class or even outside class, and you would find that it is very interesting to discover what do other people have in mind or what are the abilities that they have and they are interested in developing. Now, going to our basic topic, which was about famous figures. Now, we started our lesson or the unit. We started by mentioning famous figures. Now, we mentioned, for example, Mohammed Abdul Latif Jamil, we mentioned Amasya Ortega, Stephen Jobs, Li Ka-shing, and then we followed by Sheikh Sulaiman al-Rajhi. Now, all of these people, they accomplished big things in their lives. Now, lots of influential people have accomplished thousands of achievements solving problems around the world. Would you like to be like one of these personalities? What have you accomplished to help other people? Now we have here, this is something very interesting. We can just think about it, and as you can see that we have here a picture of the world here. So what is the idea? Okay, so we have here again, yes, when global problems or issues are mentioned, what comes to your mind? So this is the idea. When I have the world, I think about global things, and we do have global concerns or problems that we do need to cooperate to solve. Now, what comes into your mind? Just discuss with your classmates. What are the different global issues that we have, and how can we solve them? Now, this is the topic that we are going to talk about in our writing lesson. So we have the writing lesson for the day. We have the objectives of the writing. Number 1, to list worldwide achievements. Number 2, to search for information. Number 3, to choose a new figure and research about his or her accomplishments. Number 4, to analyze his or her work in different periods of his or her life. Number 5, outline events using a timeline. And then number 6, organize ideas to write an essay. So we do have a lot of things to start with in our writing lesson, and we're going to, of course, write our essay. So going back to the idea of the global here. Now we have 3 questions here, or we have here instructions in the book. Now in the book they mention, think about times when many countries in the world have faced the same problems. Now we did pass by a crisis or times that there were different things that a lot of countries or lots of people around the world, they suffered from or they faced these problems. What kinds of problems were they? So just think about it. You can discuss this in class or with a classmate. You can discuss it with your friends as an open topic. And do you know if countries found a way to deal with these problems together? Now we do have big examples that happened where the whole world cooperated and they just stood by side, and then they just tried to help these or to do something for these problems together. So we're going to just pass by and think about it. And here you can see that there is a picture. I want you just to focus here on the picture. Now what comes in mind? We have different words. Of course you can see that this is like a drawing of a mountain or something, and you can see that there is the top of the mountain. What is the name of the top here? Now, do you know what the word summit means? Now here I gave you the picture to relate this word to the picture here. One meaning of the word is the highest point or the peak, the highest point. How do you think this meaning relates to the important meeting? Discuss your ideas in small groups. So now you can relate between the idea that I have. I mentioned global issues. I mentioned facing problems. I mentioned countries that work together to help people solve their problems. And then I ended it here with this word, a new word. We have your summit here, which means that we have something connected to the highest point. Now we can connect our ideas together, and we're going to see what we have more. You can discuss it or discuss the ideas of the group, but we do have an interesting question here. Have you heard of the G20? So this is going to be the result of all, or the connections that we have here, the words that I mentioned or the ideas. We can relate it all to one thing, which is that G20. So the G20 here, what does it do? If you have any thoughts about it or you have a complete idea, or we can scan the text and find out. So which means that we do have a text in the book that we're going to pass by. Now open your book on page number 28. We have many tasks to do. So we're going to start our writing lesson with something very interesting here, which is about the G20. Now read the text and fill in the blanks with the words or phrases. This is one task that we're going to do. So you can see in your book that we have here the text. There are spaces. We're going to fill the spaces with different words. We're going to listen, and you are going to check your answers. So I'm going to read, you're going to listen to me, and then we're going to check the answers together. Now, what are the spaces or the words that you're going to fill the spaces with? We have specific words that are mentioned in the book. We have the words after, by, first, from, last, once, since, and when, which are all connectors. Now we're going to fill in the spaces, and you are going to check with me your answers. Another task that we are going to do, you have in your book, identify the topic or the theme of each paragraph. So you can see from the text that we have in the book that we have here 4 paragraphs. The 4 paragraphs we're going to identify. So there is going to be a topic sentence here. Okay, so the topic sentence is going to just give us a main idea. What is the paragraph about? We have here paragraph number 1, 2, 3, and 4. So be ready to highlight what is the main idea. Also, a third task, we mentioned that you're going to fill in the spaces. You are going to search for the topic idea. The third one is going to be to search for verbs. Now, which verb forms are mostly used? are passive sentences used in any sections, why or why not? So we're going to discover, do we have the passive? Is it used, why or why not? Also, find the key events relating to the G20 that are mentioned in the text, highlight the dates and events, verbs in the text, then write them on a timeline. So as we did for Sheikh Salman Rajhi, when we had our timeline, we're going to prepare for another timeline. So just keep in mind, and you can highlight the different dates that are mentioned and the events. Now we're going to start. We do have the first paragraph. So the first paragraph, we're going to search for verbs. You can see that there are no spaces, so we are done with that. I want you just to search with me now for verbs. So I'm going to read, and you are going to listen and read with me together, and then we're going to answer. In December 2019, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia assumed that the 2020 presidency of the Group of 20, G20, an international forum for economic cooperation, attended by the largest and some of the fastest growing economics in the world. Founded in 1999, the G20 brings together leaders from 19 countries and the European Union to discuss the world's most challenging problems. So did you find any verbs here? You can underline some verbs like assumed, attended by, and we have here brings. We have also discuss. Now these are different verbs. Are these verbs the same tense or are they different? Now identify. What is the main idea here? What is the topic sentence that you can find that gives you the idea? So here actually it introduces us to the paragraph or the topic that we have here in the text. So we have here, it's going to be the group of 20, which is called the G20, an international forum for economic cooperation. And also we have here, discuss the world's most challenging problems. So why do they gather together? To discuss the world's challenging problems. So we have here the first one, the topic or theme of each paragraph. Number one, what the G20 is and does. The second one, you can see that we have here spaces, and you can see that I put the verbs for you here. So you can just fill in the verbs. We have here after. The second one, what did you find? Then we have here space. Okay, we have here then. So we have here since then. Number three, becoming an annual event, 2011 onward. So we can say that we have here, yes, from. And blank, the 2-day G20 Leaders Summit was hosted in Riyadh. So we have here when the two. After that, you can search for verbs. You can find some different verbs with me. Now, we did the first one slowly, so now you can just move on with me. We have here was created. We have also have met. We have also were introduced, was hosted, was held. Now you can see that they are similar to each other. Which tense are they? Present. You can see that we have here 3 tenses. Now we are going to identify what is the main topic. Now we mentioned something about Riyadh, about Saudi Arabia. We have something here, the basic idea. So we're going to say that the leaders' summits were introduced, becoming an annual event. So do you remember the word now? We understand now that the idea is the G20 Leaders Summit. Moving on to the third part, we have here 1, 2, 3 spaces. Now from the very beginning, blank, it had assumed the 2020 G20. So which one of the words do you think is related? We have here, we can fill once, it had assumed. We have here the agenda had 3 main aims. Blank, 2, and you can see that there is a comma. So I'm going to count. We can here use yes first. And then going by, we have here second, to safeguard the planet by protecting its natural resources, and comma, to shape new frontiers. So which one is suitable here? We can choose yes last. So here, I mentioned first, I mentioned second, and we have here last. So, searching for verbs, I can find here began, I can find will allow, and we have here, these are two different forms. Now, what is the basic idea that we have here? I mentioned the first, the G20, and what it does, and then I mentioned something about the summit. And then we have here, we can say that, what did you find here? The basic idea is realizing opportunities of the 21st century for all. The agenda had three main aims. So I mentioned that we have here the aims, the different aims. You can read it and you can just look for the three aims and what are they. So the topic of the third paragraph is going to be the aims of Saudi Arabia's G20 presidency. Now we have here the last one. You can see that there is just one space. Now I'm going to read with you. We have here these three aims. We're closely aligned with Saudi Arabia's vision for the future, Vision 2030, which is based on three main themes: a vibrant society, a prosperous economy, and an ambitious nation. Space 2030, so here we can add, yes, by 2030, the kingdom aims to have built a country in which all of its citizens can make their dreams, hopes, and ambitions come true. So we have here, to identify in general, what is the basic thing we have here? The idea is going to be, yes, as we mentioned, the three aims. So, paragraph number 4, the main idea is to the link between the kingdom's G20 aims, and we have here the Vision 2030. Now, these are the verbs that I mentioned. What is the difference? We have here active verbs like assumed, founded, was, took place, began, and had. We have also had assumed, which is perfect. And we have here the passive verbs was created, were introduced, was hosted, and was held. Now, these are the differences between the three tenses that we have here. What is the idea? Why did I mention the passive here? And why did I focus on the verbs? Now, we do have a writing lesson, but just to relate when we are writing and use the correct form, we must remember that the passive form is mostly used, and we have here the past forms, yes, and the passives, they're used to focus attention on the action rather than on a person or the organization or country that carries out the action, because the action is more important. So just put this in mind when we are starting our writing lesson or the writing part. Now, time for the timeline. We have our timeline. As you can see that I highlighted the different dates. So just check with me. We have here the first one, 1999. G20 was founded. We have here 2008, Leaders Summits introduced. We have 2011, summits became annual events. We have here number 4, December 2019, Saudi Arabia assumes 2020 G20 presidency. And we have November 2020, Saudi Arabia hosts G20 Leaders Summit. Now, you can see that here we have the ideas. They are ordered by timeline, and this is something that you must put in mind because we are going to start our own timelines when we start our writing. So here you can see that we did it twice. We did it with Sheikh Salman al-Rajhi, and we have here the same thing when we read about the global here, the G20, the global organization. Now cover the text and look at your timeline, reconstruct the story and tell your partner, then switch roles and repeat. So you can use the same information here, but to reconstruct and use it in a different way. Because actually we are going to write and there are different ways to present your writing. Now it's time for another figure. We are going to go back to our main topic of the unit, which is famous figures, and we have influential people. So we are going to look or think about different figures. Now you do have in your book the instructions. We have here choose a successful and or influential person. Number 2, to research information about this person's life. including the events, steps that took the person from obscurity to personal success, fame, or influence. Number 3, to note these events or steps in a chart. Number 4, to write a descriptive essay. Put in mind that we are going to write a descriptive essay about this person. Now name the person. We have here step number 1, step number 2, number 3. Now these are just notes that we're going to use in our second part of the writing. So our outline of the day. We discussed achievements. We read together, and you listened to me in 2 parts. Enumerated events based on the timeline that we have. We had to enumerate the events. Compose a timeline, and we prepared ourselves to what we are going to do in our writing. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have a timeline. We're going to write, order, and we're going to start our essay, inshallah. So be ready.